Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And another shaker card. I don't know what's gotten into me. I've posted many shaker cards in the last month or so. I don't know. My latest obsession again. They're fun. You can't go wrong with the shaker card. So I'm using some more products from Simon Says Stamps Friend Like You release. I'll have a link to the release as always in the description box below. And we're going to do some easy ink blending, couple types of splatter, more than one type of splatter, even faux splatter. Who'da thunk? Add some sparkly bits and make it a shaker. So, as always, everything I used will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and then end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That is what helps keep the lights on, helps pay the bills, enables me to keep bringing out content. And let's get into making this card. So I am going to ink blend directly onto my card base, like to the front of the card, which I do not do very often. I've been asked in the past why I don't, because, I'll ink blend a panel and then I'll like glue it to the card base. Mostly because I make a mess. And doing things like ink blending especially, usually I will smear ink and whatnot on the back. One way to help prevent that though is to work on like scrap paper. I pulled out my big grid paper pad that I've had for years and years. This used to be just the only thing I used. Before we had the magnetic glass boards and all the bells and whistles, we had scrap paper. Still comes in handy. Love this stuff. So I have a piece of Post-it tape right at the score line of my card base. My card base is a top folding A2 white note card. And the Post-it tape just helps me keep the ink from getting past the score line, so onto the back of the card. And then working on the grid paper, it's absorbing the excess ink, so it's not going to get on the inside of the card, so it'll keep it clean. And I'm using 3 different shades of Simon Says Stamps Positively Saturated inks for my blend. I'm using Iris, Royal, and here is Night. And I'll have all the inks listed in the supplies as well. And just blending these on here. And as always, my camera makes my blends not look very good, but the blend was fine. Plus, these inks do smooth out and soften and dry back a bit, so they'll look fine. But also, it doesn't matter with this, because we're going to add splatter, and then we're going to make it into a shaker. And you can see I kept the inside clean. So yes, thumbs up for me, because honestly, it's more work for me to try and keep, just from making a hot mess. So for the splatter, I just left this on the grid paper. I took a scrap piece of paper to cover the rest of the card. And starting with my white gouache, put a bit of that on my palette, thin it out with a little bit of water. And then I'm going to add, of course, a generous dose of splatter to this entire card front. And then just to give it a little something extra, I mixed Ranger Perfect Pearl powder with water. If you weren't aware, Perfect Pearl powder does have like a binder in it, so it won't come off once it's mixed with water. And then splatter that on, which doesn't look like anything, but in real life, there's just that shimmery, splattery bit, which you could do just that. You could skip the white and just do like shimmery splatter. Always a good idea. Lovely. So after I added my splatter, set that aside and grab just like a scrap of white cardstock, and I use my Post-it tape again, just to mask off one section. And the bottom section I'm blending with Field green ink, and not worried about getting a perfect blend because we're going to die cut this as well. So put that on there. Then I'll move the Post-it tape down and I'm going to blend honey ink above this. And this just means that I can die cut my stems and flower centers because they're connected on the wafer die. I can die cut them in one pass and get the 2 different colors. Just makes life easier. Because I'm using the tilted daisies again. I've already done a video using these, and you can't go wrong with daisies. They're just cheerful. So I'm going to die cut that piece that I ink blended with the stem and centers die of this set. And then the actual like floral portion, I'm just going to die cut from more pieces of white cardstock. So I'll run these through my die cut machine and get all my die cut pieces. Super simple. And then once I've got them die cut, I can then assemble them. So I'll have my little daisies with their little stems and in their little color pieces, really. So to assemble these, I'm going to use the Positively Perfect Craft Glue. Getting a lot of questions about this because Simon Says Stamp, this is like new. They only released this a couple weeks ago, whenever it was. I haven't quite used up half this little bottle yet, but I've been using it consistently now for the last, well, since I got it. I really like this glue, you guys. I never thought I would like a glue other than my Craft Tacky glue. And I'm genuinely liking this stuff. Crazy times. I know. Anyway, use glue of choice. Whatever your favorite is. We have many options now, and that's awesome. So after I assembled my little daisies, I also used the Brilliant Hummingbird little wafer die and die cut that from white cardstock. I used the same field green ink for part of it. I'm also going to use some of the honey ink for part of it. And for this, I'm just using my small blending brushes so I can go in with a little bit more like precision on these. And then for the body, I pulled out ocean ink, and this is another one. You can't go wrong with hummingbirds. Like, they're so cute. They're so pretty. I don't get to see them very often, like every once in a blue moon. It's my goal. I need to plant more like hummingbird friendly flowers and things because I love hummingbirds. They're just fascinating little creatures. And yeah, every once in a blue moon, one will zip through my backyard and it just makes my day. So, and the thing I love though about paper ones is you can make them and have as many as you want. And you can kind of do like whatever colors, they're just fun. So I'd use that ocean, and I also blended like ocean and field together. And now I'm using orchid ink. I'm going to add some of that. And then I'm going to pull in the iris, which was what I used on the background. So blend those together. And then once I've got all of those bits blended together, I just popped out one of the, and then for the little like beak, I just left that in the piece of cardstock so it's held in place because it's a pretty delicate little piece. And I blended charcoal ink onto that. And then for the eyes, rather than run this through again and die cut a little scrap, I just popped one of the little pieces out and I just quickly colored that with a black marker. So simple. And now we just got to glue the pieces together, which super simple. And then once he's put together, again, he's so cute. He's so cute. So I'm going to assemble my little hummingbird. And then, of course, I'm going to make him sparkly. Because that's just, they've got that like metallic finish to their feathers. They're just, love. So once I get him assembled, to make him sparkly, I'm going to use my Imagine Crafts like Sukaneko Sheer Shimmer Craft Spray, the sparkle. I've shown this in many videos. This sparkle spray sells out every time it comes back in stock, but it's worth it. It's worth it. I love it. It's just straight sparkle. That's it. So you got to shake it up really well because the sparkle settles to the bottom of the bottle, and you shake it up until there's nothing settled at the bottom. And then for something like this, I hold the bottle up fairly high, like a couple feet above the piece, and then I just mist it with this sparkle spray, and it's glorious. I love this stuff. I've been using it more. I'm not putting it away anymore. I leave it on my desk because that's why I go like, months at a time without using it because I forget I have it. So I turn on my flashlight. You can kind of see the sparkle. I'll do that at the end too because it's always hard to sort of really capture on camera, but this whole little hummingbird is now sparkly. It's just fabulous. I love it. So for my sentiments, I'm using the Happy Day stamp set. And at first, I just stamped this sentiment onto a scrap of the white cardstock with the royal ink. So I'm going to stamp it and then use the coordinating die and die cut it. And then I changed my mind because I was like, it just wasn't working with what I was planning for the card. So after I die cut it, instead, I am going to white heat emboss it onto the same piece of cardstock. So I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool. And then I've inked up the stamp and I'm stamping it with clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to coat this with some white embossing powder. Tap off the excess. melt that with my heat tool. It's going to look like kind of nothing because it's white on white. But once that's melted, I'm going to blend that same royal ink over this. And because the sentiment's heat embossed, it's going to resist the ink. However, some of the ink is still sitting on top of the white embossed sentiment. So that's where I just take a cloth and then I just buff away that excess ink. And I just keep moving to a clean section of the cloth and continue buffing it away until all you see is the white embossing powder. So once I've got that buffed away, then I will die cut this with the coordinating wafer die, and then we'll be good to go. So then for the inside of my card, I took that same royal ink and I'm just lightly blending it up the bottom of the inside of the card. Not a whole lot, and not making it super dark, so I could still write over it if I needed to. And then I have one of the daisies that I die cut and another sentiment from that same Happy Day stamp set. So I'm going to line up the sentiment with just an acrylic block. I'm going to stamp it with that same royal ink onto the inside of the card, and then adhere that little daisy. And then once that's adhered into place, I'm just going to flip this over and snip off the bit of the stem that's going to hang off the bottom of the card, and that's going to finish off the inside of the card. So I wanted this done before I adhere, like make it into a shaker, because that's going to like bulk it up a little bit. So I've got the inside done. Now we're going to make a shaker. So I had an A2 panel of white cardstock, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I die cut it with one of the Petal tipped labels wafer dies to create a window. And then to make it a shaker, I need to line the back of that cardstock with some acetate. So I trimmed down a piece of acetate, and I'm going to flip over that panel of cardstock. And to adhere the acetate, I'm just going to use some of Simon's Terrific tape. So I'm going to just run this along the edges of this cardstock panel. And then once that tape is in place, I'm going to use the little adhesive lifter tool. I've shown this in a bunch of videos in the last month or so, however long. I really like this, especially for this stuff, because sometimes like getting that corner of the tape up is so annoying. This thing's got little like teeth on it, and it just kind of roughs up that edge, and then it makes it so much easier to pull it away. So got the backing tape off. Now I can adhere my acetate. So now we've got this A2 size panel with this window. So then I need to make it a shaker. So I'm using some foam tape here. This is Altenew's 8-inch thick foam tape. So like kind of your standard-ish thickness, maybe a little bit thicker than average. That'll give plenty of space, to make it shake. And then you always got to remember, just don't leave any gaps between the pieces of foam tape so nothing can fall out. So line the perimeter with the foam tape. And then to line everything up, I'm going to put the window face side down, just in the corner of my score buddy. Your stamp positioner tool would probably work as well. Honestly, I've seen other makers do it like this and they have good success. In the end, I actually off camera had to trim off a tiny bit of my card because I still couldn't line it up. I'm better with just eyeballing it. But this is an option as well. So I've got it face down, remove the backing tape to the foam tape, put in my shaker bits, which is some Northern Lights like confetti. And then I'm going to press the card base, lining it up in that corner there, onto this panel. And in theory, it should line up. But again, like I said, I didn't line it up even with this. I'm so much better eyeballing it, but it still worked. So now I've got my shaker, just like so. So once that's ready, now we just need to adhere the flowers and my little hummingbird and the sentiment. So I figured out how I wanted my flowers to go on this, and I'm going to adhere these into place again with just that liquid glue. And then once those are adhered, same as how I did on the inside, I'm just going to flip the card over and trim off the little bits that are hanging off the edge of the card. So get these adhered into place. Once these are adhered, I fiddled around with where I wanted to place this sentiment and used the one that I stamped the first time. I just adhered them together just to give the sentiment just that little extra bit of dimension. So I adhere those layers together, and then I'm going to stick just a couple little thin foam squares on it just to balance it out, because part of it kind of hangs off the little flowers where I decided to put it. Plus, things like foam squares and dry adhesives like that stick better to acetate. So put a couple little thin foam squares, pop that into place. And then I did the same thing with the Hummingbird, just put a few of those little thin foam squares on that as well. And then once I got those into place, this is where I do the faux splatter. Because I wanted to add a bit of black splatter, but I didn't want to splatter like all over this card. I've shown this in other videos. This is something I picked up from Carly Minner. She does really fabulous, like clean and simple cards. And she draws her splatter on. And I love it. I really love it. It's way more intentional, and you can keep it, a lot more sparse if that's what it calls for. And in my opinion, that's what this called for. So I just drew it on with a black marker and we're good to go. So we've got sparkle and shaker bits and multiple types of splatter. I love that little sparkly hummingbird. That sparkle spray is so fun. And then, yeah, you can't go wrong with shaker bits. Shaker cards are they really are fun, So that was the card. Like I mentioned in the intro, I will have everything I used listed and linked in the description box below the video. So you can just check that out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting and letting the robot overlords know that you like what you see. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!